Well, hey, folks, it is me, black and white, as always, Mr. Pacific Ocean Asia. Friday, the day before my much needed get out of traffic, get out of the bus, get away from some of my coworkers' week off, I was driving to Ballarat. And I like it when I go up on Fridays because there's no students to haul and I get to listen to Rush Limbaugh pretty much uninterrupted. I like listening to him. He's a breath of fresh air in a liberal, toxic Colorado dump ground. As I drive through Boulder, which is as fruity as it gets, it's just nice to hear that we still have freedom of speech and that there's a man who's a thinking man, and he was talking about all these accusations made against senators. Roy Boy, who's running for senator, Hollywood people, Kevin Spacey, getting down on his gay side, claiming he's drunk when he mounted a 14-year-old boy in bed. And these accusations and allegations are coming out of the woodwork, both liberal and conservative. But one of the things that Mr. Limbaugh said that was rather interesting was this. He said, folks, I'm here to tell you, you can't even ask a woman out on a date anymore, and that can be construed as sexual harassment. That is indeed true. He also talked about, and Paris and Pyramid Head and others have been making me more aware of this by sending me videos and or little write-ups, that there's an increase in the manufacturing of sex dolls, sexual robots. Now first, I'm not into that. Michael likes a real woman, or I like to at least look at a real woman in picture form. Robots, no. And I asked the question, have we really come this far? Do you remember the old Virginia Slim cigarette commercial? You've come a long way, baby. Does anybody remember that? Anybody remember how they used to glamorize this tall, hot-looking woman holding her cigarette? If only those ads could have portrayed the wrinkled-up faces. The women that generally smoke are not sweeties, and they're and they got this husky voice. Yeah, you've come a long way, all right. That cigarette ads, beer ads, and gambling ads, they show these happy, beautiful people. And the gambling ads don't show you the women that lost their whole paycheck. The beer ads don't show you the woman with the beer gut. I went to the rec center yesterday. Yesterday was a pleasant day. Today I don't expect it to be as pleasant unless I choose my steps carefully. Sunday, somebody lets all the screwballs out of the box and they all decide to descend on the rec center. You know, the lesbian that started yelling at all of us men for having a conversation quietly in the sun about work last weekend. That was fun. Or the woman named Jeannie and her extremely obese mother. Both of them are liberal. Both of them are know-it-alls. Both of them grew up in North Denver, and they always talk about the same stuff every week. North Denver and the growth and the restaurants and the same stuff. But if any other man in there is talking to somebody else and makes any comment about a woman, women in general, she always butts in and says, oh, but men. One day she came up to me and a woman by the name of Wanpen, who is a Thai woman married to her white husband, and she always talks to me. And we were in the hot tub, and I said, I'm really starting to believe that American women are no good. And Jeannie heard that, and quack, quack. I said, excuse me, we're not talking to you. This is a private conversation. Well, let me tell you something, buddy. American men. I said, I don't care about your opinion. We're not talking to you. You're not welcome to this conversation. And Juan Penn looked at her and says, mind your own business. We're not talking to you. Bye-bye, bye-bye. And I thought, chalk went up for Juan Penn. Jeannie was perturbed. The undeterred feminist was rebuked by an Asian woman and a white man. Pity her. Jeannie's constantly putting down men. Now, Jeannie is Denver born and raised. Her mother's Denver born and raised. And I have finally got a nice picture that really, when you're trying to, the old TV sets, you adjusted the rabbit ears and you changed I forgot what it was. You could change the picture, you get rid of the snow, you could tune it in. That's what happened to me this week. It finally dawned on me that women born and raised in Denver have an attitude more than other places I have lived. A gentleman came to me at work. He's an Irish guy. And there's a few times I've gotten very annoyed with him, but overall, he's gotten to know me and I've gotten to know him, and he made a comment about the alpha female in the room the other day that opened her mouth. I have been nice to her. I actually thought she was softening, and she came up and made a rude comment to me, a comment that wasn't even true. And I said, your comment isn't true. That is your opinion, and nobody has ever told me that in my entire life. She had made a comment about my feet. Another driver was joking around and said, you have webbed feet. And I said, webbed feet? And I kicked off my shoe. I said, does this look webbed to you? She goes, take off your sock. I take it off. She goes, oh, you got ugly feet. Now, I'm not going to lower myself to take off my sock and take the time to take off my sock, and show you guys. Here's my foot. If I can get it up there. And I'm being facetious, of course. You ever seen a black and white foot? So I said, no, my foot isn't. She commented that my foot was ugly and nasty looking. I said, no, it isn't. I said, my toes aren't all gnarled and ingrown toenails. They're fine looking for a 52-year-old, almost 52-year-old man. And she says, it doesn't matter if they're ugly. My feet are pretty. This is a woman who lost weight through some operation to the stomach. I don't know what that's called. And she's got bat wings, and she's got all this loose skin hanging on her. Tattoos all over. There are times she looks good in certain outfits and her long hair down, but she's dyed her hair. She's not sexy. She's not what I would call ladylike. She didn't put a filter on it. I finally walked away from her, and this Irish gentleman came up and says, you need to ignore her. She's stupid. She just doesn't put a filter on it. One of her other friends, a Hispanic woman, says, my friend and I both have come to her and said, you need to put a filter on what you say because you just hurt people. And the gentleman told me, she has to hurt people. I said, sir, why are the women in Denver like this? Because they're all like that. They shoot off their mouth. They're rude. Being nice to them. He goes, you have to understand the culture here. He said, I'll tell you something, Mike. He said, my dad came to me one day and said, I'm getting tired of you coming home from school and getting your butt kicked. I'm not raising a coward. He said, that did something to me. He says, one day I brought a machete to the school and I was transferred to another school because of that. He said, I took a monkey wrench. I found the janitor's toolbox and got a monkey wrench. And he said, I clubbed a couple guys in the bathroom at was it West High School? But not West High School, but another school. I said, "Are you kidding me?" He says, "No." He fought his way as a white man against the Hispanics over and over. There's another gentleman who is no longer with us at the terminal. He's an older man. His son is the one of the athletics coaches down at West High School, and I liked them both, but the older man told me story after story of kicking butt just to survive West High School every day back in the day. I want to make it very clear that the Mexicans here are a lot of them are very combative. They start fights, they start trouble. That is historic as well as current. Friday I had driven 11 hours. I was tired. I was asked to take one other driver's counselors as well as mine from one area of the metro, which is way northeast, going all the way to southeast. And on a Friday, the traffic, no matter where you go, is up your butt. And no matter which street I turned down, it was a parking lot. Getting on the freeway was a parking lot. So I found my best path. Go down Quebec, go down Martin Luther King Boulevard, shoot down University, shoot down 14th, cut over on Grant, cut over on 8th, parking lot, cut over on I-25, cut over on Santa Fe, bumper to bumper. It was a long ride, and I was getting increasingly frustrated. The 8 high school student counselors were very, very understanding. I said, "I'm sorry, guys, I can't win for losing today." And they were fine, but when I got to the farthest reaching high school of the uttermost ends of Denver, I said, "You guys have a good weekend." And the one guy smiled. He said, "That was the longest damn bus ride I've ever had." He says, "Don't you get sick of this?" I said, "Oh, I like driving, but today, all this traffic, I want to start telling people to stop moving here." So I was coming back, cross town in it, to the terminal. I'm exhausted. I'm sick of it. I see a Mexican guy in a Suburban in a left turn lane, and this is what the jackasses do here. He pulls out in front of me, not right in front of me, but no signal, goes to the next left turn intersection down at Alameda and Morrison, whips in, no turn signals, and I was right next to him, my window's open, and I just stuck my thumb out, and I went like this. He pulls up so close to the car in front of him, and he goes, "You got a problem, bro?" So, "Hey, you might want to use your turn signal when you pull out the turn lane in front of me and the turn signal." And I can't hear what he's saying. He's running his mouth. And I said, "You know what? I just said you need to use the turn signal, dude. Bye." And I shut the window. Well, he pulls up even more, and I hear his voice. And I said, "Man, are you still running your mouth? Learn how to drive. That's all I'm trying to say." The guy just goes on and on. I said, "I cannot hear you. I have the music on in here, and you're not talking loud enough where I can understand what you're saying." I said, "Turn signal. That's it." He's in the left turn lane, okay? If he's to go straight, he's going to hit a median. So my light changes, the car in front of me moves, his light changes, the left turn arrow, I've got the straightaway. He goes, cuts from the turn lane in front of me, almost getting hit by a school bus. I honk. He slams on the brakes in the middle of a major intersection. I knew this was happening, so I didn't hug his butt. And I just grabbed the two-way radio and pretend to call it in. I can't read the first 3 letters of his license plate, and these clowns know this. They don't clean off the dirt, or they have the really dark tinted cover. Colorado will not change this. They used to be against the law to cover up your license plate with something that obscures it. And you got letters and numbers ran together in such a way that you can't tell the difference between D, O, the Q, if you don't see that little thing at the bottom. Like, I can't get this frickin' plate. And he goes down the street and goes like this, and I'm staying back. And then he stops like he's going to turn. I stop. And then he goes forward. And he keeps doing this. And I'm like, you know, if I was in my pickup, I'd follow this Mexican SOB, wait till he stops, and I'd call the police and say, "I want to report an aggressive, bad road rage driver." And I've noticed with the Mexican community, and the girls are the same. All of them think they're tough. All of them think they can take on anybody. We've got girls in our break room whose arms aren't much bigger around than this at the wrist. We've got one whose bad breath you can smell 20 feet away, and she's got rotting teeth. She is younger than me. She sleeps with a nasty, gross, unkempt Mexican guy. I was made aware of that by one of her buddies the other day. And it's funny, all her friends that sit around her comment on her breath, comment on her. But there's a deficit with the women in that room that they will not get away from her. That in a weird dysfunctional codependency, they all still manage to get something out of each other. The woman is a toothpick. I could take her. And I'm not a tough guy. And I hear her running her mouth that she can kick everybody's butt. People that are three times her size. This is the Hispanic, machismo that exists in the females and the males. And I look at this skinny guy in his truck, mouthing off, running his mouth. And all I said is, you need to use your turn signals. Didn't call him names. And I thought, I'm sorry if there's Mexicans on my Facebook that are offended at this, but it's people like them I wish Donald Trump would say, you need to leave the country. You are the weakest link. This idea that the Mexican women and men have this attitude that whites are racist, I have heard enough stories since I've been here of white men telling me, I went to school, I minded my own business, and 4 or 5 of them would wait to jump my ASS outside the door. I had to learn to fight. It seems to me that in Denver that the Mexicans have started most of the drama, the fights, the altercations, because they are racist. Denver is now 58% Hispanic. And this gentleman told me, as well as another Hispanic gentleman in the workplace who's a Jehovah's Witness. He's a Jehovah's Witness and he's even got an attitude. And he said the same thing. He had to fight. But let me make it clear, the Hispanics not only beat up the white guys back in the day, they were getting into it with each other. Hispanic girls, to this day, love to throw fists, pull hair, bite, the whole thing. I've watched fights. I've seen fights. I had 2 girls get into it on my bus. I kept it from happening on there. And then I get to the bus stop, and the one runs out and makes a rude comment to the other. She gets out of her seat, flies down the stairs, and face plants her in the dirt outside my bus. I shut the door, pull off, and call dispatch. And the other Hispanic kids are going, Mister, why didn't you do anything? I said, once it's off the bus, it is out of my legal realm. I can't touch it. I can't get out. I can't leave you guys on the bus. I cannot involve. If I try to intervene in that, I can get sued. These kids didn't understand that. I said, guys, I am bound by laws. And when it comes to kids, I'm not messing around with that. I called it in. The one was sent to Montview, a detention facility, and kicked off my bus for the rest of the year. The other girl who was calling her bitch and F you and, on and on, Spanish cussing and then English cussing. And I'm telling this small girl, you need to stop. Stop egging us on. And I'm thinking, Hispanic women don't know their boundaries. They don't know the reality that, you keep being a chihuahua and keep yapping at the back of that pit bull, he's going to come around and go, and you're going to be a piece of hors d'oeuvre. Hispanic women have way high of opinion of themselves. So do the men. They think they can take on everybody. And I wouldn't do this, but I thought, if I wasn't a Christian, I'd go drive around the neighborhood until I see that vehicle, because that's a neighborhood over there. And when I do, I'd come back dressed in all black. I'd wait till late at night, and I'd take a ball-peen hammer and go around every window on that Suburban and go, tap, crack a windshield a few times, park my truck a couple blocks away, stealthily get into it, go down the street and send them the letter. Next time you drive like an ass, you won't have a vehicle left, homeboy. Better watch your mouth, and you better watch how you drive. But because I'm a Christian, God has made it very clear to me, don't get revenge. I know a lot of Hispanic men and women that are going to be in trouble on the day of judgment when they think they're tough, and the everlasting God's going to sit there and say, and you're who? I saw what you did, and it was wrong. That being said, the women have been raised in a culture here that is violent, that is aggressive, and I've told you, my observations of women in Denver culture in general is aggressive, in your face. You say anything to them of a critical nature or trying to call them out, you got a fight on your hands. A verbal argumentation, threats. When I say that the women in Denver are no good, I'm not talking out of opinion. I'm talking out of fact. So I go to the rec center yesterday, and I run into a lady named Duran. She's from Mongolia. She's 52. She is smoking beautiful. Nice shoulders, nice brown skin. She does yoga. She works out. She's a school teacher at a Montessori school in Denver. She has a white husband who is successful at what he does. She told me that 13 years ago they bought a house for $240,000. She said now it's worth $500 in 13 years. This is how Denver is going. More than any city in the continental United States, we are experiencing growing pains, the likes of which I have never seen in any place I've lived. We are having too many people move here. They said on the radio the other day we have a shortage of housing, both for sale houses as well as apartment buildings, even though I'm watching entire blocks of 1920s brick homes being bulldozed, and they're building block-long, 4- or 5-story high, kitschy, yupster, $2,000, $2,500 a month apartments, condos, whatever you want to call them. They can't keep up. Safeway next to Cherry Creek Mall, which has been there forever, very busy store, shut down. They're going to be building high-rise condos. Across the street, the old Sears building that I believe was put up in the 50s is going to be raised, and they're going to put 1,300 underground parking stall spaces as well as a high-rise, either offices or living or something. The face of Denver is changing rapidly. And what we are hearing by the locals is that all the out-of-staters are these bad drivers. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Florida, Illinois, and Missouri, and New Mexico are the crappiest drivers from out of states that I have ever seen. Florida doesn't use signals, cuts me off, way over the posted speed limit, and I just shake my head. One day I yelled at a woman with Florida plates. I said, please, for the love of God, go back to Florida because you don't know how to drive. She just looked at me and didn't understand anything. Michael was not born and raised here, but I pay attention to dynamics. You can tell the Colorado locals. You can tell by looking at them. You can tell by the minute they open their mouth. You can tell by the stickers on the back of their vehicle. Native with the Colorado license plate symbol, Pioneer plates. You can tell. The local women that have been born and raised in Denver, to date, I have not met one sweet, ladylike, single woman who is worth pursuing at all. At all. Now, I mentioned 2 women, one married, one who's widowed, who act like ladies. Neither one of them float my boat, but they're very nice ladies. They're Seventh-day Adventists. But even the women who become Christian out here bring all of the leftover, recycled vestiges of crappy Denver culture right into their relationship with Jesus. And all in all, they don't really change. They're superficial, they're skin deep, and you just don't see a transformation. There's a woman at work. She thinks she's a princess. I've told you about her. She runs the sound system at her church. When I first met her and somebody told me she was a Christian, I said, what? And I would have never believed it. The other day, it was her birthday. Couple white guys, couple Hispanics went with her, celebrate her birthday. They all chipped in $5 for dinner, and she complained that none of them paid for her dinner. And I don't know how all this came down, whether she invited them or what, but her dinner was $40 and she didn't even have enough to pay for it. And I laughed. This was told to me yesterday via chat, and I said, isn't this fun? That serves her right. Knock her off her stool. The Hispanic women and the white women in Denver say that all men are, I'm going to quote, assholes. This, of course, has nothing to do with their choosing skills, ability, and finding a decent man. This has nothing, of course, to do with the fact that they deliberately choose the bad boy, the one that smokes pot, the one that sits on his butt, the Denver trash culture of males, Hispanic, white, or black, that most of are complete liabilities to go after in a relationship with any female. When I say Denver sucks as far as people, this is the element I'm in every day. This is the element I am in every single day. So I go to the rec center, talk to Duran. It's nothing but a pleasant conversation. She is not flirting with me. I handed her one of my ginger candies. She gave me a water bottle. She had an extra one. And it had it was an education conference that she went to, so it had the name of that on it. And she told me, my husband and I are happy. She said, we paid off our house so fast. And she high-fived me. I said, wow, you're out of debt. She goes, oh, yes. She goes, we are driven. And she told me, but sometimes I realize that maybe I work overtime. I do too much. And I said, all work, no play, Duran. I said, no offense, but I lived in Hong Kong, and I told her about the Cantonese Chinese and how they work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day for the Hong Kong dollar. She goes, oh, for me, I'm not materialistic. She said, but I'm learning how to find the balance. This woman is better looking than any of the Denver local females that sit in the hot tub, go to the sauna, the steam room. There are some pretty locals, but they're jaded, they're calloused, their face shows their origin. And once again, it is the Asian females that talk to me. The Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Mongolian, the Thai, at the rec center. That any of the white women that I spend any time talking to, it doesn't take them long to start bitching about some date they went on, some boyfriend, or some drama in their life, or the one that wears headphones or earplugs in the hot tub and starts screaming at me from the other side because I didn't see her. And I say, I'm sorry, what'd you say? Oh, you can't hear me. Never mind. I don't want to talk. I'm wearing earplugs. Okay, you called me over here. You're shouting. I don't know what you're saying. I don't want to talk. And one day I looked at her and I said, do you have mental issues? That went over well. The lesbian women in Denver, oh my gosh, very man-hating. I love lesbian women in Denver. They're very, very amusing. They forget that they were formed from a substance that can only come from a man. It's called semen. That they have the audacity when they were brought into the world by a man and his sexual apparatus and the fluid that flows through that apparatus when an orgasm is reached. Hate all men. And if only they could tell by looking at the man's brain. Now they're studying the brain of the Las Vegas shooter. I don't know if any of you know that. I was told that. They're doing autopsy. They're doing, not autopsy, but doing brain study because they donated it to something where they're trying to see if they see something in the brain that would indicate a violent section, a section that says, and I thought, it's kind of like when people used to measure heads of people and started profiling people that way, and that became against the law. Now they're trying to look into the brain and see. They tried to do it with the gaze. They said the hypothalamus was either smaller or bigger, and I'm going, what a bunch of malarkey. There was, by the way, no scientific proof that proved that either way. And people don't want to believe that your bad actions are a choice. If you want to go participate in lesbian fun, or gay fun, or adulterous fun, or gambling fun, or drinking, getting drunk fun, or doing drugs fun, and all the other sins and vices and follies, that's a choice. That is a choice. If only we could look into the brain of the man and said, you're going to give birth to a woman who hates men. And we could reprogram that and say, any woman that hates man will not be born. It will not happen. Meaning, men, you better wear a condom if you're producing women like that. I always laugh. Hillary Clinton and the Democrat women, the liberals, that scream, my body, keep your laws off my body, while they coolly, calculatedly, without a conscience, destroy the baby that God gave them. And I want to ask them, what if you were aborted, Hillary? What if we could go back in time and say, you are the weakest link. Bye-bye. Yes, America is arriving at a point where there are manufacturers of sex dolls and people are putting in their orders. There's somebody I know who is contemplating it for himself. And before you laugh, what is man left with in American culture? Now, women out there, we have women in my Facebook that are on the East Coast. They're nice. And I think even they agree with what I'm talking about. There's a lot of women that ever got their butt spanked growing up. You got a wrong view of everything. So not all women that are like this. But the majority of white women in America, there's something wrong. In fact, in Colorado, I'm starting to believe that most white women are mentally ill. When a woman is 57, 59 years old, yells at me in the hot tub, and there's jets, and there's water, and there's people talking, and the kids are over here yelling and squealing in the water fountains and stuff. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You can't hear me, I got earplugs on. La, la, la. Man, are you okay? Can you have a normal conversation? I'll go over and go to shake her hand. Hey, Barbara. She will not shake my hand. She'll go. So one day I said, I looked at another woman who looked at her like, what is her problem? I said, she's being weird today. I watch women when I come up to make a right turn in my bus. Those women are unable to figure out my bus is a longer vehicle than their SUV. and I'm going to be taking and encroaching on their personal space. I don't block them, but I'll pull up where I'm blocking their view as they're looking out their driver's window. They don't like that. They get mad. I'm not blocking their lane of traffic, but they can't see around me. Instead of putting it into reverse, there's nobody behind them. Back up 10 feet, let me go. Nope. There. I mean, they start manifesting childishness. These are the same women that will walk into a professional business and act like they got all their crap together. You ought to see them in their cars. Denver women are the greatest to just sit back and watch. And you can have so much fun if you don't react. And watch them have a complete nuclear meltdown in their car. Because God forbid they have to take a nanosecond out of their day to think about, I could back up and let them go by, but instead I'm going to wait for my light to turn green. Or if I want to make a right turn, you're going to risk pulling out around me when the whole 40-foot length of me is blocking your view, and I've watched this crap. Instead of backing up, they'll pull out, and then I hear the car behind me go as they lay on the horn as she pulls out 2 lanes over and almost gets hit, failing to yield the right of way to traffic that has the green light that I'm trying to make the right turn on. When I see women do that, I just shake my head and go, you're really on a power trip, aren't you? Forget kindness, forget common sense. I'm in a big vehicle. This has nothing to do with me being male. But this is women in Denver. You have offended them. How dare you turn there? How dare I make that turn on that street and block your view and wrinkle your first world problem day? Today, my intent is to go into the sauna. I am not going to be run out by some lesbo, feminist, man-hating, nasty-looking woman. I mean, ugly. I'm going to walk in and not say a word. I'm going to do an experiment. And I'm going to sit down. And I'm going to wait. I'm not going to look at her. I'm not going to make eye contact. And we'll see how long it takes for her to self-destruct in there today. And if she says anything to me of any negative nature, I'm going to quickly get up, walk out the door, and go right down the hall to the managers of the lifeguard and say, we've been having a problem. I want to tell you about it, and I want you to talk to her. She's been making accusations against us that are false. She's been rude. I don't get in trouble in here. I work with the public all day, and you need to talk to her. And I've got a room full of witnesses that, if they're here, you can ask them about her performance last week. There is something wrong with Denver women. This is not a figment of my imagination. I lived in Spokane. I dated a few white women when I was there. I did. I dated one in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I dated one right in Spokane. There was another right in my neighborhood where I rented that I can't say we dated, but we'd hang out. She was cute, but she had issues. I have to tell you this because it's funny. Her name was Sabrina. Slender little white girl. She was good looking. I met her at the laundromat. She had no bra on and her nipples were poking through her shirt. I was like, oh, she's kind of cute. Well, I didn't know that she had a few screws loose, but not in the angry department type. She'd come over one night. She'd come over and visit me because I told her she wore this black slinky dress. And when she walked in, I was like, oh, wow, she's sexy. And she was looking at some of my things. I had a Titanic book. She goes, oh, I love the Titanic. And we're sitting there talking. And she had on some perfume. And I smelled her. And I said, wow, you smell good. And then she puts her arm on me. She goes, you like? And I felt her up. It was fun. But one day she come over and I said, Sabrina, when's the last time you washed your hair? She goes, well, it's been a while. You're going to laugh. I said, come on. Let's go have a bath. You and I, right now. I stuck her in the bath. I must have washed her hair 4 times, lathering up. I couldn't believe how dirty her hair was. She was clean. I said, why don't you wash your hair? She was trying to do something with it. I said, man, if you do this at least once a week, you won't have all this buildup. Yeah, Michael isn't like women. You know, women reject men on every little infraction. This is Denver women. Denver women are teasers. We have many women that I call slut teasers. We have them at work. There was a woman who no longer works with us. She was a Hispanic woman. She claimed to be a Christian. She and I were on a field trip one day downtown Denver where we parked our buses. And we had all this time because it was a Remain where we get paid. I said, come on, there's a nice little restaurant over here. I'll pay for you. Let's go eat. She'd sit there and pour her heart out to me, and I can't find a good man. You're really nice. Touch my hand. She was good looking. So, like a dummy, this is Denver's style. I start going, shoot, I'd go out with you. Oh, no, I'm older than you, and you'll see somebody else, and you won't be interested in me. I said, you know what, why don't you give it a try? Well, no, And then she rented to another coworker who came over from Mexico. Now, this woman who came over from Mexico was very kind. She always talked to me, hi, how are you? Happy? I would have dated her. And she said she rented from her, and she goes, oh my gosh, Michael, I've got to tell you about renting from her. And the problems and the difficulties. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. But I'd already started seeing that side of the woman. That Denver local women are nutso. Virtually all. Last night, I took a 66-year-old woman. She's a Hispanic woman. We haven't done anything for a while, but I took her. We went to Golden Corral and ate. Just pleasant time. She was born in Mexico, but she's lived here most of her life. She immigrated. Her father processed all the papers and everything legally. She was married to a local Denver guy, and she sits there and tells me about her life with him. And he was typical Denver male. Didn't spend any time or attention to her. Never hugged and kissed her. The Denver males, they only want to get a boner, release their rocks, and that's it. And I noticed that the man culture in Denver is not loving and sweet. I noticed the man culture gets in their cars and deliberately cuts people off, waiting for you to honk, waiting you to flash your light so that they can have an excuse to fight. Denver has always been a fighting town. There's a pimple-faced, extreme acne case woman who has scarring all over her face. She drinks too much alcohol. She's got the traditional Denver beer gut. She's arrogant. She plays with her long hair, thinks she's all that. She's rude. I've tried to be kind to her. She is rude. She only dates Mexicans, loser ones at that. She's got a couple of kids. Of course, that's the man's fault. It's not hers. I don't know if she was married or had a boyfriend or what, but she's the one that came up to my Filipino friend years ago and said, all men are assholes. And I thought, no, women like you are assholes. You're sphincters. You stink. You're gross. You're not as pretty as you think you are. In fact, you're not pretty. You're not sexy. The only thing that the muchachos are going to go after on you is this right here. I'm at West High School. I'm parked in the bus zone. I pull my bus all the way up to a sign. The arrow points bus loading only. The other side is handicapped. I go for a walk around the school. Last year we had assigned spots in order where we were supposed to be. This year not so. She's usually first, but I got there before she did that day, parked my bus. I come back. She had pulled in front of me and backed up in the handicap zone. And I said, wow, really? Her sitting in her seat, thinking she's all that. I didn't say anything to her because I've had to learn the hard way. You make any comment to the Hispanic women in your terminal, you got to fight on your hands. I went into my bus. I called my super and I said, hey, just want to tell you what's going on down here at West. My supervisor said, she laughed. She goes, she's got issues. I said, oh, yeah. I said, are you going to address this? Oh, I'll talk to her. I don't know if it'll do any good. I said, this needs to be stopped. See, this woman is not following workplace rules. She's not following street legal rules. You do not park a school bus in the handicap zone unless it is lift bus that is stickered with the wheelchair on the back bumper and the side of the bus. But this is a Hispanic/Mexican woman who thinks, F it, I can do whatever I want. She is not a quality employee. When she drives out of there, she drives unsafe. She goes around the corner at a high rate of speed. She pushes the lights, and I just sit there and go, somebody needs to follow this bitch and watch her. That's not going to be done. And this is a lot of the shit that we hire in the workplace I work at. We hire a lot of Hispanic women. Almost every one of them that comes in there is rude. They don't have to use any manners. They don't have to hold the door for you. They don't have to look at me, smile, greet me, say hi. They can come in with their pouty, rest me bitch faces and their fake eyelashes and their penciled in eyebrows and all their cleavage showing. And they think that because they're here, that they exist, that this is where it's at. I laughed when I saw all the vitriol in the break room against Donald Trump being elected, and that was the first time I raised my fist to the air and said, yes. Anything that the Hispanic community in Denver's pissed about, the stand I need to take is the exact opposite of theirs. The legal ones that are here break the laws, break the rules. They don't have to respect anybody else. They want to talk Spanish only to their friends. I get so tired of hearing that. I say, I want to say, shut up. You know, we all know you're talking shit about everybody in here. It's like when I lived in Hong Kong. I watched Australians that lived in mid-levels. They literally parked an Australian culture in the middle of an Asian freeway and expected everybody to move around them. I thought, WTF, you're in Hong Kong, excuse me. You want Australian culture? Go back to down under and pull that crap there, because it'll work. But the Hispanics have barged into white man's territory, saying we stole their land, and they sit there with the attitude. They got high crime in their own neighborhoods. They got bars over their own windows because their own Mexicans are stealing from each other. Chihuahuas running loose in the streets, and all they talk about is their burritos and their tacos and their enchiladas, and I'm going to kick somebody's ass. And I listen to the whole tenor of Hispanic culture in Denver, and I find there's nothing there of any depth or value or morals or anything. And I look at the caliber of the women in the break room, and I want to shout with a bullhorn and say, let me show you the rest of the world. Let me show you what the definition of healthy community is. Let me show you how ignorant all of you bloody fools are. And then you think you know what you're talking about when it comes to politics? You don't know a damn thing because you can't manage your families. You can't follow workplace rules. You can't clean your bus. I've had a Hispanic woman. I turned one in. My bus, the seat was tore up. There was mud all over the seat, the floor. She goes, I checked, and it wasn't like that. I said, excuse me, did you have my bus for the last routes of the day? Yes, I did. I said, well, then you didn't check, did you? This is Pencil Girl. This is the one that can kick everybody's ass. I left her presence. I went to my supervisor and I said, I want to talk to you. I'm tired of this. She goes, write it up. I'll address it. I'll tell her, do you want me to deduct from you pay that you get 15 minutes a day for cleaning when you didn't clean Mr. Nelson's bus? They don't care. It's okay for the Mexican women to offend us, to step on us, to be rude to us, to say all kinds of crappy, unfiltered stuff out of their mouth. And management, by and large, doesn't fire them, suspend them, or get rid of them. Welcome to the Reverse Racism 2017. Now, Michael would never go as far as a sex doll, but I want to say something to Denver women. I want to say something to American women that have the bitch thing going on. You are the primary reason that porn proliferates. You participate in the industry by taking off your clothes for a fee. And then you have all these women out there saying, men are pigs, men are pigs, men are pigs. Excuse me, men are sexual. God made us that way. And when the normal course of things that God ordained is violated, guess what happens? Guess what happens? You know how you cap a man's sexuality and put it under control? When a man finds a loving, good-looking woman who takes care of herself. Sorry, women, but if you're 10-ton, 2-ton Hesse, don't expect us to get a boner for that. If you're going hair under your armpits and you got bad breath and rotting teeth and dentures and you got all your little stupid habits that everybody has to accommodate, instead of you taking a look at yourself and going, why would anybody want to put up with me blasting the TV 24 hours a day? Why would anybody want to put up with 5 dogs running around, crapping on the couch, tearing up the furniture, and all my cats and all my stupid little addictions? And I see that in Denver's dating posts all the time. You must love dogs. I'm sorry, I'm looking for a girlfriend, not a dog. It's kind of hard, the idea of me doing this to a dog is not my thing. Maybe you're into that. By the way, there's more reports out there of women getting into bestiality. For those of you outside the country that don't know what that means, women are having sex with their dogs. Isn't that fun? Gross. When a culture, like America, gets obsessed over an animal that eats its own shit, eats its own vomit, eats out of the trash, eats dead things laying on the ground, and licks and laps up everything, an animal that God called unclean, and they obsess over them and make a multi-billion-dollar industry. And when those same people who got Adopt a Shelter Pet Colorado license plate and the dog paw sticker, I just want to ask a question. What is it about these people in Denver that all have to have this big dog paw on the back? And I notice all of them drive like crap. All of them. No turn signals, speeding. And when I see their Adopt a Shelter Pet, I want to go up and say, adopt a speed limit. Adopt proper driving. Adopt a turn signal. Adopt respect on the roads. And I look at humanity in Denver and I just shake my head and go, you've got to be kidding me. These are the same people that will let their dogs bark and bark and bark. These are the same people that will walk through nice neighborhoods and allow their dog to walk up on somebody's lawn, pee. And that does kill grass, by the way. They built across from the Career Education Center, which I used to drive a route out of last year, they built these kitschy lofts across the street. This was a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, and the white yuppies are moving in and driving everybody out because as soon as they build this stuff, property values and taxation goes up, and the working man can't afford to live. They sell their house and get out. And they would walk across the street on school grounds, says no dogs allowed. And I watched the white women go right through the fence with the sign, no dogs allowed on school property. Dog's not on a leash, or it is on a leash, and they walk right through. And I said out loud, I said, obviously she didn't read the sign. They pretend not to hear me. But they let their dogs crap all over the lawn between the fence of the school and the curb. And all my high school students have to walk through that. In fact, sometimes they've stepped on it, tracked it in my bus. And one girl looked at me one day and she got on, she goes, somebody stepped in dog shit, mister, and they just tracked it all up your stairs. I said, oh, great. Thanks for telling me. White women also have a problem entitled rules never, ever, 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 ever apply to them. I saw this in Duluth, Minnesota. School buses only, no parking, no sitting. They pull right in the way. I got a busload of students, they're right there. I come up honking. They don't move. They look in their mirror. I honk again. Then I honk a third time. And when they don't move, I hold it down. Then they get out of the car. Okay, all that energy in your little power trip, you could have moved up and gotten out of my way, but instead, you're going to do Custer's last feminazi bitch stance. Women in America, many white women, are mentally ill. They live on only emotions, not logic, not common sense, not, hey, there's a sign that forbids you parking here. You're taking your kids to school to learn to read. You're yelling at your kids when they transgress your rules, but you don't yell at yourself when in front of your children, bitch. You park in the buses only, and you take on the bus driver in your minivan because, after all, you're more important than everybody else. I will call out the bullshit that American women do because it is a big, big problem. I wish that by law, because of how people are getting, that we had the right to pull up on their bumper with the bus and push them out of the way. Not ram them, but just shove them out of the way and say, okay, I've honked 2 times, you're not moving, and you're sitting there going, ha ha. I would love it. Put a rubber bumper on my steel bumper and just shove you out of the way. You don't want to move? I'll do it for you. Oh, you hit all the signs and everything. You'll get charged for that, not me. I wonder when American women and Hispanic women in general are going to wake up one day and realize that when God starts judging this world, because I'm not the only one who sees this stuff. Do you really think political correctness and feminism is going to save your sorry ass when humanity comes unhinged? I watch these women pull out right in front of me in their little Prius. Speed limit's 40. They pull out in front of me and go 20. I'll flash my high beams, kind of get their attention in the mirror, like, did you look? Did you see this big yellow thing behind you? They look in the mirror. They don't accelerate. And I think, fuck, we got another one of these women that's going to play a power trip. And it's too bad there isn't a cop there to pull her over and say, obstructing traffic, pulled out in front of a large vehicle, I'm ticketing you. I got news for you, women. When God comes back and he brings this world into the 7-year tribulation, I promise you, if you do that during that time, there's going to be men and other people that are going to go, oh, really? And they're going to hit you. They're going to ram you. They're going to sideswipe you. They're going to move you out of their way. Civility is being lost every day in this society. People are no longer afraid of, ooh, I don't want to get in a wreck. I could get a ticket. People are hitting vehicles and leaving the scene, even if it brings damage to their own vehicles. A gentleman over at International, one of the satellite shops near where I work that services the trucks, he moved from New York. Beard. He's a man, mechanic. He said, yeah, I was on the freeway and a Mexican guy just hit my truck, sideswiped it, damaged it, and took off. I couldn't get the plate. You know what's funny is if a white guy was to hit a Hispanic truck and take off, and that guy's truck was drivable, he will endanger everybody trying to chase his ass down. But let me make it very clear, it's not just the Hispanics that drive bad in Denver. It's all of the locals. I drive to Ballarat, and 2 out of the 3 other drivers always have to pass me. Always. 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 And they are speeding. And they are going over the speed limit because I look at my speedometer, it says 55, 65, and there they go. How come you don't turn it in? Because I'm not a snitch. The only time I turn stuff in is when it's a flagrant violation of, like, the pimple face who parked in front of me the other day. It's like, you are disrespecting me because you think this woman was parked behind me in the bus zone one day. Kids are getting on my bus. It is not time to leave. She's honking at me. I called my supervisor and said, yours truly is laying on the horn because she wants me to leave before the appointed time when students are boarding. But let me make it very clear to my viewers. I often, in my mind, think if I was a manager or an authority, these women would be fired without a second thought. So you got a very dangerous attitude in this job. You think that you're more important than Michael. You park in the handicap zone. You pull in front of him and back up, which you're not supposed to do at the school zone. There was room behind him. I'm giving you a 3-day suspension, and if you do that again, I'm letting you go. I don't care who you're related to. I don't care if you have some big Chica tribe that's all going to slash my tires. Goodbye, Felicia. I don't care if Denver's a fighting culture. Michael doesn't live in fear. I live in fear of God. That's why I don't go get revenge. Because if I didn't have a fear of God, I'd go find that son of a bitch that did what he did, and I would do damage to his vehicle. You better believe it. Michael was good at being a vandal when I was a kid, and I got away with a lot of stuff that I never got caught on. After all, I'm the kind of a guy that would stalk animals in the yard when I was trying to trap them that were damaging things, and I would sit so quiet with my binoculars watching. I don't do that to people, but my point is, I could watch when the lights go out, when things happen. Or if I didn't want to break windows, I'd get a couple boards with nails in them, and I'd put them in the front and rear of every tire on the vehicle. The minute he backs up or pulls forward, all tires gone, and leave a note underneath one of the boards. You drive like shit. We're putting you out of commission today, asshole. Michael is not a pussy. Michael's not a wimp. But that a Hispanic male, and females have done this too. A woman went blasting down a side street, pulled up way past the stop sign. I have no stop sign. I went to make a left. So I gently start turning. The side of my bus starts blocking her. She glares. She won't move. And she finally backs up 2 feet. I still can't get around. And she finally slams it in reverse. Big, fat Mexican woman. And she calls me a pussy. I said, lady, watch your mouth. I got kids on here. I don't fucking care. Oh, your armpits are beautiful. They're this big. I didn't say that. You're fat. You're overweight. You don't know how to stop behind something called a limit line. And instead of graciously backing up and leaving this situation alone, you want to yell at me. I'm a white guy driving a school bus, and you're screaming where all my students can hear what a foul, filthy, vile mouth you have. And I apologize for my language, viewers. I have gotten this in the environment that I work in. It is horrific. There is no such thing, for the most part, as something called ladies in Denver. We call ladies these butch, male-acting, lesbian, feminists. They're not ladies. They're beasts. It's interesting that the porn industry shows all these very pretty women, lipstick lesbians. And I saw some of that when I would go to tracks when I danced a couple years ago. But even they carry this anti-male hatred. That women that are actually bisexual are rare. You're either lesbian or you're straight. I always laughed when the feminists scream and yell about men looking at porn. But those same feminists, when I comment to them about, yeah, she makes her money being a prostitute. Oh, she's a working lady. No, she's not a working lady. She's a fucking lady. And not a lady. She's an effing machine that gets paid for it. She doesn't care about the guy she's with. She just wants the money. The Bible says the prostitute reduces you to a loaf of bread. That is the truth. Prostitutes will talk and tell you everything you want to hear because you're paying them. But what is the difference today of American women that you have to take on so many dates before you can undress them beneath the sheets? You'll end up spending more than you will a prostitute. Because you're not going to get a long-term committed relationship. And I watch women who have gone from one dysfunctional relationship to another because I don't want to be alone. Lady, the very thing you need to do is be alone, not so you become an anti-male bitch, but so you can clear your head and learn to use discernment and learn to find a guy that's suited for you. And I watch women go after weak men, men that use them, and then they come to me and said, what do I do? I said, stop going after those kind of men. I don't believe in the law of attraction, but Michael does believe that some of you women will only attract a certain kind of man, and most of the time it won't be the good ones. But when a good man is interested in you, you just go, oh no, you're not my type, you wear glasses, you don't make enough, you're white, you're this. They got a litany of excuses, and then they go back into one more dumpster diving relationship with another man that was literally scraped off the bottom of a waste management can. Tell me that American women don't have mental problems. And I'll prove to you with a cargo shipload of evidence that, yes, they do have problems. I may sound harsh in what I'm saying, but I'm only as harsh as the society is around me. And I try to use this to empower other people to be thinking. I try to use my voice hoping that some white women and Hispanic women will hear what I have to say and take stock and go, yeah, he offended me, but he's right. I want to say something to the Hispanic women out there with your chica power garbage. I'm not impressed. Because something you don't realize is there's a standard higher than any of you all, and that's God. And God's about respect, God's about decency, God's about following the rules. And when you don't follow the rules and you do something to me, white Irish boy fighting Irish is going to turn your butt in. Because I don't care if you're related to the entire city in Denver and they're all going to show up in my front yard. I'm still going to say, you're in the wrong. Get out. Get away from me. I don't care if Denver was a fighting town. You cut me off, I'm going to honk the horn. If you don't like to hear the horn, then learn how to drive. Learn how to show respect to other motorists on the road. And when somebody tells you use your turn signal, you don't pull from a left turn lane in front of me and do your stupid, immature, unprofessional, Mexican trash bullshit in front of a school bus and then think you're all that Mr. Machismo. I can tell you everything about you just by that act alone. You're a waste of semen. I finally had to make myself aware of the fact that when you have so many draggy people in a city, so many low-class, uncouth pieces of fecal matter humanity that I work with, that when there's so many of them, that they all enable and validate each other, that in their own minds they think there's nothing wrong with us. But what is interesting is to see the kind of women, a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them that I work with, they have no more quality than a floating turd in the toilet bowl. And that floating turd in the toilet bowl is looking at the other floating turds in the toilet bowl saying, you stink. And you're going, did you just put that other person down? You and her exactly the same. You both shit. And people get mad when I say this. This is not your Sunday morning godly sermonizing here, but I'm just stating a fact. And I think of this all the time, especially about Denver. It is hard to soar with wings of eagles when you're strutting around with pigeons. Most of the women in this city are pigeons. Eating trash, shitting on everything, strutting around. And yet in their stupid little minds, they think they're hot. They think they're where it's at. They think they're cool because they're going to go to their Mexican club and drink and be stupid. And all these Mexicans that are desperados, that want to get their penis wet, are hoping so bad to get a chance to score with a trashy, valueless person. And I want to make it clear that in God's eyes, God loves the whole world. I'm not saying I'm better. I'm not. But I'll be damned if Hispanic culture of women in Denver is going to sit there and look down their nose at me. You want to judge? I'll judge you by the standard, and you are 100% off the beam deficit. You're ugly in the heart, the exterior, you're gross, you have habits and vices, your attitude sucks, your mouth and what comes out sucks. And then you're going to tell me that you hate Donald Trump. You're not qualified to talk about political matters. Not at all. You can't follow company rules. You can't follow decency and respect. You cannot follow the golden rule. And then some of you call yourself Christians. And you all sit together, and you all bitch about each other, but you still sit together. You still cling together. It's like a bunch of sorry people that all jumped off the ship and you're on a life raft. Instead of one of you saying, man, I'm swimming off of this thing. I don't want to be around you cats. That'd be me. I can swim. There's an island. Bye, I'm out of here. You guys can float off on your raft of toxicity. Now, I've never in my life been exposed to a culture as trashy and low-couth, calloused and jaded and horrid as I have Denver, Colorado. Every place I've commented on that I've lived has its deficits, but Denver is truly, to me, the worst experienced city for women and men. Most of the men in Denver are assholes, ready to fight. Most of the men are desperados, and any piece of ass that walks by, they're slobbering all over it. Not realizing you get involved with that girl, you're going to have nothing but problems. They don't care. And I've been reminded again and again and again that the people I get the most breath of fresh air are the Asian women. And there's an Asian couple, Vietnam, husband and wife, always shake my hand, always say, how are you? Do I talk to white women at the rec center? I do. But every single one of them would not be good for a relationship. The Asian women, on the other hand, are loyal. They're good looking. They're nice. They don't talk and behave. Now, there's one Asian woman in there. She's Korea. She's a flaming Democrat. She's obese. And she's obviously adopted the finer points of American culture and become just like the metro trash I see blowing all across the city of Denver. And she's full of hate, piss and vinegar, which is an example that women who come over here, a lot of them just get ruined. Michael loves people. I love people. That's why I go to the rec center. Yes, to sit and soak. One thing I would love to shout at the people I work with is that no matter what they think, they're wrong most of the time. In their assessment of others, their assessment of themselves, their assessment of God and His absolutes. And the only comfort I can gain is one day God is going to hold up in front of all of these people, if they do not know Christ, everything they said and did and thought. That even Princess, when she stands before God as a saved person, God's going to say, you thought of yourself more highly than you ought. I'm sorry to break it to you, ladies, but there's no such thing as a princess unless you're part of a royal family and you're a real princess. But the princess mentality in the U.S., men have encouraged this. They've called their daughter a princess. Men, knock it off. When's the last time you men called your son a prince? Or you wives or your mothers? It doesn't happen. Why are we calling women princesses but telling men that they're not a prince? No one, no family should ever be putting their daughter on some pedestal just because you think that she's so special. Excuse me, there's a whole lot of families out there. Your daughter's not the only one. And all you do is enable and encourage her to become a walking, talking bitch who's full of herself for the rest of her life. I know Christian men that do this. Shame on you. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. Jesus is the King of Righteousness. Jesus is the living God. Tell your daughter to worship Him, not herself. Michael's never going to go the way of a sex robot. But for all you women, and some of you Christian women who love to point the finger at us men and say, you're pigs, you look at other women, you look at porn, you conditioned us to do it because to get involved with you means stress, means a dry sexual relationship. Michael had to learn the hard way. I never made love in the United States of America with a white woman. I had sex. It wasn't until I went to Asia that quite a few women I made love with. You may think I'm using semantics, but there's a difference. I would never lick and smell an American woman under her arms. I would never be passionate and expressive and so sensual with her. I can't. And those women put us down, talk crap about us. And I just shake my head and go, what is it going to take to wake these people up? And if you think I'm kidding about town dynamics, I wish I could remember the name of one of the people who came and became a disciple or a follower of Christ. And the one that was telling him about Jesus mentioned that he was from Nazareth. And the guy responded, Nazareth? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? So when I'm talking about town and city dynamics, for those of you Americans that think that it's all the same all across the board, there are many similarities, but no. Hibbing is different than Denver. Denver's different than Iloilo in the Philippines. Hong Kong and Denver have absolutely nothing in common except that they're big cities. I've lived in Prescott, Arizona. I lived in Mammoth Lakes, California. I lived in Akron, Ohio. I lived in Seattle, Washington. I lived in Colville, Washington. I lived in Spokane, Washington. Those three places in Washington are totally different than each other. Colville is a town of 7,900. Spokane, total 400 something. And Seattle's a big city. By the way, the Asian culture in Seattle is wonderful. If it weren't for the constant rain and the mold allergies I had there and the cost of living, I would consider living there. Asian women are different. And I've tried to fall in love with Hispanic women, and I'm unable to do so. Oh, they turned my head. Even in the hot tub, I saw some pretties. I'm like, gosh, they're beautiful. But it's only a veneer. Now you might ask, Michael, would you date a Hispanic woman if she was interested? Absolutely. But my faith in that turning into something that would last is sketchy. Would I date a white woman if she was attractive and was interested in me? Absolutely. But I certainly wouldn't be making plans to consider that working for any length of time. I get lonely. I want to do something with somebody, so of course. And I want to make it very clear, there's Hispanic gentlemen, and there's a couple, not many, of Hispanic women that I respect and like. But overall, I'm really tired of the Mexican culture here. I'm sick of it. And when they scream and yell about Trump, I just shake my head and go, why is it okay for you guys to shit all over white people and do the crappy things you do in traffic, in my break room, in my workplace? You pull your bus around in front of mine illegally in the handicap zone, and I'm supposed to respect you and keep my mouth shut? You've got to be kidding me. Sometimes I wish we would have a civil war. And I wish the white people pulled their heads out of their butts and realize we need to stop allowing all these people to come into this country. People want to go on and on about the Native Americans. Every country in the world has done land grabs. And I'm going to remind the Mexicans of something that you all need to know, because you don't pay attention to history, some of you all. The Spaniards, bloodthirsty as hell, came over to Mexico and wiped out the Aztecs, Incas, and Mayas. Not one Mexican stands up ever and says we need to recognize them. And the Aztecs were bloody too. They were warriors. They pulled the heart out of a beating child and held it up, corazon, to their Quetzalcoatl god. I took Spanish history. Mexican history. It's not pretty. It's ugly as hell. And what is a Mexican anyway? A Mexican is not the three races that God created, so to speak. There's Asian, there's African, and there's European. That's it. The Mexican is a conglomeration of a mixture of Native American, Asian, Spanish. There's no such thing as an ethnicity of Mexican in the sense of Asian, Black, or African and European. I can say this because I'm a mutt. I'm a mixture of European cultures, Irish, English, Scotch, and Dutch. But Mexicans are mixtures. They're mutts. You know, Australians are just ex-Brits. They're English. They're British. Britain, and I love saying this because Australia just hates it when I say this, but Australians are ex-convicts that were sent and relocated and dumped in Australia. And people don't like to pay attention to roots. Now, I'm not saying all Australians are criminals. I'm not saying that. But their culture descended from a criminal element. The prisoners of England were sent and dumped there. That's why when Michael is asked, why don't you celebrate Christmas? Because I look at the roots. Who started it? Jesus Christ or pagans? And what was its original intent? No offense, ladies, I'm not trying to step on your warm, fuzzy tinsel and eggnog and all your little euphoric feelings. You get over it, but you need to look at where all this stuff came from. It is not Christianity. It is not biblical. And no, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness who believes in boycotting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and boycotting your birthday and the 4th of July. For crying out loud, Jehovah's Witnesses won't even honor Thanksgiving, which is not pagan at all. It is a thanksgiving to God. Abraham Lincoln, let there be a day to give thanks to the Almighty for the blessings. I'm paraphrasing. Jehovah's Witnesses is a cult. They deny that Jesus Christ is God. Anybody that denies that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh, according to 1 John, they're standing in deep doo-doo. You're going to hell, folks. God, Jesus Christ, is not a good man. That is ridiculous. It says in Adam all die and Christ all live. How could Christ be this perfect man? The Bible says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Who is the all? All of humanity. Jesus is God who came. Emmanuel means God with us, wrapped in flesh, but above it. When I look at the women in my workplace, they don't have a proper view of God, because if they had a proper view of God, they would act like ladies, dress like ladies, stay out of the bars like ladies should, and stop talking like sailors, or worse than, and covering themselves with tattoos, and looking at every man as a piece of trash when God made men just as much as he made women. And the battle of the sexes needs to come to an end for the simple standpoint that God created both male and female. And this is why we have massive dysfunction in the United States, because people will not recognize or believe the truth about God's assessment of humanity. Denver women leave a lot to be desired. They have nothing to give of lasting legacy or quality or a passing of the baton for eternal purposes, as a general rule. I have never seen such hostility in women as I have in Denver, Colorado. I have never seen such immaturity as I have in women in Denver, Colorado. I have never seen such combativeness, aggressiveness, unladylikeness, and I've seen nothing but blowout, in-your-face rebellion to all of God's absolutes. And I have not met one conservative Denver female here that I know of. Most are liberals. I have been at Denver Public Schools transportation for a little over 5 years. And I've seen enough of the Hispanic culture. Most of it is fit for the trash can in my book. And these people, many of them look down on me. And my comment to that is, who do you think you are? And how dare you? By what standard do you judge? God's or your sicko, trasho, empty-o culture? Excuse me, I'm a child of the King, and I know I'm not perfect, but I don't walk like you folks do. Michael believes that God created all people. Michael believes that no race is better than another race, but the older I get, even though I bang pretty hard in my commentary on American women and men, I also know the facts that the Mexicans who talk all the shit in our culture benefited from the white man, his inventions, and the infrastructure that the white people put in place. That in Mexico, when they have an earthquake and high-rise buildings just drop because they don't follow building codes, that when I see every Hispanic woman obsessed with her phone, the Mexicans didn't design it, didn't invent it, and he wasn't named Steve Jobs of Apple. The phone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell, not Julio Iglesias. I love to say that because the Hispanics got this attitude. Ford invented the first automobile and production of the automobile. And I always submit to this smoking gun fact that should slam dunk all these attitudes that the Mexicans have in Denver. You left your culture because it sucked. You moved out of Mexico because of corruption, because you can't make the money, because you talk crap about the white man, but you are doing better because of the white man. And America and white people do have their racism and their problems, but white people generally have brought civility and decency and the gospel and technology and invention and creature comforts to the world that nobody else has brought. And what have the Mexicans given to us? A good burrito. I like that, but Asians give damn good food too. And so do Hungarians and Russians and all the other cultures of the world have their unique food. Also, so booyah. I look in my break room, and if we were to have a war break out in America right now, I wouldn't pull any of those people in the break room to be soldiers with me. In fact, if the invading army came in, I'd say, here, you can have them. Take them. I won't fight you. Take them. America's being ripped apart by rebellion. America's being ripped apart by feminism. It's being ripped apart by racism. And it's being ripped apart by a huge amount of ignorance by the other races always accusing us of being the racist. When you have Denver Public Schools showing videos at Manual High School every year on Martin Luther King recognition, showing the white people spraying the blacks with fire hoses, please tell me, DPS, what that has to do with healing the wounds. This happened a long time ago. They're not doing this anymore. But instead I see blacks doing what they're doing and calling everybody a racist while they get pulled over by the cops, while they use and abuse black women, and then black women stand up and start yelling in a public place to let everybody know how badass and tough she is with her 5 children running loose in the store, terrorizing the place. And I sit there and go, oh, but we're the problem. And how does that work? A lot of white people I know don't go into the stores acting like that. But we're the racists. A lot of white people I know don't mess around with the police. If they get pulled over, they put their head down and they comply. They don't start digging around in their pocket like they're grabbing a gun. No, Michael's not afraid to speak. That's why I like YouTube, and that's, well, more so Facebook now. Because I can say what I need to say. And a whole bunch of people in my workplace were blocked because they have no business being in my deal. I'd love for them to hear what I say. I'd love for them to know what I truly think about them. Because maybe if they knew what was coming out of my mouth that I can't say when I'm there, maybe they'd shut up. Maybe they'd leave me alone. Maybe that truth would be like a sword that cuts through their bullshit and helps them to see them as they really are. But I don't think it will. We live in an age where the prince of the power of the air, the devil, is in charge of this planet. God is sovereign, and he's allowed that to happen because we sinned. But it amazes me how he blinds certain ethnicities so deep and wide. I find it interesting that Mexico has never had high educational standards and acumen, and neither in the black community, and yet we're the bad guys. And you see nothing but white teachers. And even a Hispanic male told me you don't see males teaching in the Hispanic community, that our kids are learning under white people. Well, that's because white people tended to raise the bar and make things high. I'm watching what's happening in our schools with the Spanish speaking. These kids aren't becoming politer. They're not becoming inventors. They're not becoming world changers in a good way. They're becoming little activists that hate us. Good job, Mexicans. Chalk one up for you, fomenting and creating hatred and rebellion. And I told somebody, I said, if this stuff keeps on, we're going to hit a watershed moment one day where white people are going to have to stand up and say, you know what, we're tired of this and we're pushing back, and we're going to push back hard as hell till you knock it off. But yes, Denver women, 99.9% of them are not worth pursuing at all for a long-lasting quality relationship. This is not just my opinion, that is a fact. I see the way they drive. I see the way they act. I see their mentalities. It's sick. It's sick. Happy Sunday, everybody. See ya.